I'd like to welcome everyone to today's parenting session. I'd like to welcome everyone to today's parenting session. We are very excited about our Vision of Hope parenting series. This is one of 3 sessions that we'll be offering this month. And we're starting out with Hope Lavelle, who is a transformational advisor from the Transformational Advisory Group. We will provide information on how you can follow up with her for those who would like more information after the end of today's session. This is a good time for you to invite a neighbor, invite a friend, invite a family member to join you. As parents, there are many things that we need to know, and for better or for worse, children don't come with a handbook. Transitioning from being a single person to now having the responsibility for a child or children is not something that you learn overnight, but it's our desire to help you to be successful in that journey. Finances are something that we often don't like to talk about, but they're at the heart of most of the decisions that we make. You need money. You need money to be able to buy groceries. You need money to provide shelter, transportation, healthcare, anything that you're going to need as someone who is responsible for young children all the way up into adulthood. And so it's important to know how to handle your finances. Today, we're going to discuss finances with Hope Lavelle, and then we will have a discussion about how to save a life. And Lauren Walker will lead that part of our discussion today. Lauren has an organization that's called Save a Life. And we're very excited to have both of them with us today. We're going to start at this point with Hope. And so I'm going to turn everything over into her hands. Again, make sure that you invite someone to join you for today's session.
Thank you so very much, Bishop Mona. It is just truly an honor to be a part of this conversation and this series. And it sounds like the theme for today is save. So my name is Hope Lavelle. And so we're going to discuss budgeting tips for parents and getting your money straight. And I personally love these types of conversations. So I am a social entrepreneur. I also was a banker for 8 years. And shortly after sort of transitioning from banking, I started a business actually with my mom, and have been doing that for over the last 15 years, working also with people with special needs. Also, I am a parent of 4 beautiful children, beautiful and active, I should say. And I'm a wife, but I think one of the roles that I take the most pleasure in is being a woman of God. And so this conversation, I believe that even in talking about money, it should be based on some truth. So we're gonna have a great conversation. And so even as we talk about budgeting tips and for parents, I know many people say, well, how do I supposed to save when I feel like I don't have enough to spend? Saving for many of us is not a priority because we're trying to figure out how to pay Peter, Paul, John, Rob, and a whole bunch of names that we can't remember and we don't have time to write down. And so as I was preparing for this conversation, I thought about the story of the prophet Elisha and this woman with this one jar of oil kind of came to mind for me. And I'm not sure how familiar you are with it. I put a little story with it, but I'm going to give you all the cliff notes. So feel free to read. But it starts off and it says it was the wife of a man. And so clearly it tells you in the entrance she was a wife and she was a mother. But one of the most important things that I think that you'll feel is that this woman is emotionally and financially broken, right? Her husband just died and she is in debt to her ears. And now the people are about to come and take her children to go and work off those debts. And so she goes to this prophet Elisha, who her husband used to work with. And you can kind of tell she has a little bit of an attitude, and rightfully so. Not so much at Elisha, but she just has an attitude at the whole situation. And she's like asking for help, like, my husband worked for you and I need some help. And the prophet responds, and he asks her to what does she have? Which I'm sure like threw her completely off because, she just told him, I've lost my husband and my kids are about to become slaves. I don't have anything. The only thing I have is this jar of oil. Okay. And you think about it, like pretty much what real good is a jar of oil? I mean, you can maybe fry with it, maybe make a little cake, but for all intensive purposes, this woman did not have a lot. But if you read the story, he's going to show her how to take a little and get a lot. And so what I want you all to see is we're going to kind of go through that story and take some key lessons from it. The first thing that woman did, even from this place of hurt, was she asked for help. And so the important thing is to get good advice from someone who has the capacity to help. Many times we get frustrated and we vent to people who can't help, but we just want to vent. So it starts with asking for help. But then once that person gives you that plan, then you have to be obedient. Elisha told her to go and borrow some additional jars. Now, for all intensive purposes, for her, that did not make sense. But nonetheless, she went and she did it. Third is to sow. You have to be ready to give, even with the little that you have, in order to execute the plan. Then you have to work that plan. And I'm going to go back, and if you read it, it says, get the jars and shut the door. So this work is not done with a lot of fanfare. It's done quietly and intentionally. Last is reap, because as the oil started pouring, it kept going to fill all the jars. And then last, he told her to live, pay your debts off, and live off the rest. So we're going to go through these steps, but I first thought I would kind of review these concepts with you, because in so many ways, money, we have to talk about our emotions as much as we have to talk about the dollars and the cents. And I want you all's hearts and minds to be prepared to receive the information so that it can bear fruit and you can reap the reward. So the first part, as we talk about getting our money together, is to develop a financial plan. And just like how we saw in that first scripture, Elisha gave the woman a plan. And I am a firm believer that any good plan, you have to start with the end in mind. Okay, so you have to imagine where you want to be and then work backwards. And if you don't have this plan, again, those who fail to plan, they plan to fail. So another part of the plan is to take then what's in your head and put it on paper. And that goes into goal setting. And the important parts of goals is that, you have people who have a wish, they have a desire, but they don't have a real goal. A goal that is effective is what's called a SMART goal. It's specific, it's measurable, it's achievable, it's realistic, and it has a timeline. Okay, so specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, with a timeline. Okay, so you don't have all forever to get this goal. And when we talk about a timeline, goals can be short-term or long-term. Short-term goals is anything that you want to achieve within a year. Long-term goals is, let's think about something that you want to achieve over your life. A short-term goal may be you want to buy a car. You want to take a vacation. I know I want to take a vacation. A long-term goal is saving up money for retirement, but it's more specific than that. So you please feel welcome to put in the chat any goals that you have or to discuss any goals. But let's just say a long-term goal is you want to be able to retire at the age of 60 to fully replace your income and have enough in savings so that you can retire and never have a change in your lifestyle. That's a long-term goal. So Bishop Mona, I'm not sure if there's anyone who wants to discuss or share any of their goals. But I'm happy to help sculpt any of these SMART goals.
Okay, that's great. I want to, it seems that we do have a question about how do you make sure your goals are measurable?
That's good. So we'll talk about that, but a form of measurability could be, you'll take that goal, let's just say it is to save for a car, right? And the car that you're looking for, you have to put what your target price is. So let's just say that's, well, cars expensive now. Let's just say that's 15,000. And you then going to give a timeline. I want to get this car in 12 months, so 1 year. So you're going to say that I'm going to save $100 a month. This is your number. I'm just coming up with it. But the measurable piece is to actually do the math to say, how much do you need down to go towards the car so that maybe if you're going to have a payment or a note on the car, that it's reasonable. So this is a great question around measurable, because this is the piece that a lot of people don't do. They just know they want a car. But you actually need to do some math in order for the goal to really have some meat to it. So you're going to go in and you're going to calculate how much, figure out what the loans are, figure out what the payments would be based on how much you want to borrow, what the interest rate is, and then come up with an amount that you want to save. Maybe that amount is, if it's 15,000, you want to make sure that you save at least 20%, right? Which would be $3,000. So then if that $3,000 and you want to get that car within 1 year, then that means that you would have to save, say, $250 a month. So now that's where we get into achievable and realistic, right? And you think about, okay, is that $250 a month achievable for me? Am I still going to be able to pay my rent, not, have something to eat, my family won't starve, and not go into any further debt to save this $250? And then that's where you have that real gut conversation with yourself around it being realistic. And if that number feels good and you really have the income and the budget and the wherewithal to do it, then that's where you truly have a SMART goal that you can execute on. And then from there, you can kind of put some of the steps in place that we'll talk about to be able to achieve that goal. Thank you. That's a great question. So after you start to set these goals and you put together the plan, the other part of it is to be obedient. And we'll take it from going back to the story of the widow woman in the jar of oil. She was told to go, her and her sons, to go and to get some more jars. Okay, so if she had not done that, if she had not thought that she was okay with sacrificing that last little bit of oil, she would not gotten the end result, which was the blessing and the abundance. So I see be obedient. There is a deeper concept here that I call earn, save, and then spend. And if you earn, save, and you then spend, then you win, and then you win. So our previous conversation, and I think the question was asking about, how do I make sure it's measurable? So part of where you get into doing some of this work is around thinking about your budget. And what you'll see here is a budget is really a personal income statement. And at the top, you'll see income, and then you'll see expenses, and then you'll see what's left over, which is your net. I want you to think of a budget as real simple, like a subtraction equation, right? You have your income minus your expenses equals your net, hopefully a surplus, okay? So when we're thinking about it, measurability, realistic, achievable goals, then we have to do the work of understanding, well, really, what's our income looking like? And what are our expenses look like? And so when I talk about earn, save, spend, I want you all to pay really close attention to how this income statement is set up, because it is not set up like how many of us operate. Many of us operate, we earn, and then we spend, and then we save what's left over. Okay, so that's not the concept. If we want to get to be able to reap the abundance, then we can't miss the save part. So as you'll see here at the top, it says weekly or biweekly income. That's where you add up all the money that comes in. But then under the expenses, the first expense listed, the first one is savings. Then your taxes. Then you can do some after-tax savings. And then everything else that we spend is after that. So I want you to think of this like if you were a farmer. And the concept is the farmer gets a seed, right? And then they put it into the ground. They water the seed, they take care of the soil, and they wait a little bit. And before they know it, that seed turns into a full-blown plant that comes above the ground, and we see it then kind of grow up, and then it starts to bear fruit. Well, when we earn and we spend, we never take any part of our seed to set it into the ground. And the concept here is that if you never sow, then you can never reap. And so when we start to feel like our finances are a mess, and like we have more expenses than we can even imagine, and the money is not stretching, it's because we have not set aside that seed to sow so that it can reap a harvest. We're just earning and spending. And it's a vicious cycle, because it's like you can never keep up. But the truth of the matter is that we're missing out on an opportunity to get more, to really take those earnings and to put it aside so that it can multiply. We're sending everything out the door for food, for rent, utilities, phone bills, cell phone for yourself, cell phone for the kids now, because the kids got to have cell phones too, right? Transportation to go and pick them up from here and there and rip and run. But if we do things in order, we will find that the principles and the concepts, these truths, will work for us. So it's important to be intentional, have your budget and understand, and think about and really fill out there where you're going to put your savings. The next one is sow. And this is where you're going to set your intentions on execution. You started to put together your budget and you're trying to think about where you're going to save. So let's talk about some strategies on how to really execute on that plan. So when we think about what's the amount that we want to save, one of the rules of thumb for saving is, in terms of long-term saving, is to take 10% of your earnings, your gross earnings, not the net. So let's just say, for instance, every 2 weeks, you bring home, okay, let me fix that. You earn $500, but you bring home $350. How much are you supposed to save if you're setting aside 10%? Now, what many of us do is we look at what we bring home, which is $350, and then we'll say, well, okay, so that's about what, $35? But that would actually be incorrect. If you're going to save 10% off of your gross, then you actually need to pull up that pay stub and look at what your gross is and save 10% of that. So for this example, it would be saving $50. And if you remember that budget statement and that personal income statement, I want you all to start thinking like you're really business owners. So, and you can think like this, whether you get a paycheck or you just get your money directly to you. Taxes are an expense that you pay, and they can be managed. So don't just think of your money as what you just have left over in your check, because there are ways that you can still save before taxes that will make your savings go further. So that's why it's important to understand everything that you're bringing in. Don't just think about that one little, the net, that's all I got. And then I net, and spend, and whatever's left after that. Maybe I can, I got $5. So I'm trying to take you from thinking about that $5 to save, from the $35. I'm trying to get you up to the $50. Okay, we gonna come up from being at the what's left after you pay your bills, and we're moving savings, and that's sewing up, 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 so that as you bring it up, then now you have more that you're setting aside so that you can truly, this is going to get good, so that you can see the abundance. So after you determine the amount, next you have to determine your how. What do I mean by that? You got to fund the account. Let's just say whether it's $5, $35, or $50. Once you say, okay, this is what I'm going to do, well, how is it going to get to where it's working for you, right? Couple of different options here. You can actively save. So like where you take the money, you're saying, you know what? Let's just say you get a check, you cash it. You're going to take that, let's say $50, and you're going to transfer it over to a different account yourself. That's kind of what I call the active saver. You're going to get directly involved, and you're going to put your hands to it. The other way you can fund it is you can delegate it. And that means you can have the bank. You can set it up where you say, bank, look, I'm not going to keep up with this, but I'm going to give you some rules. And I'm going to go to my bank, and I'm going to say, you know what? Just tell the bank to just automatically take the money out of my account, automatically withdraw it. If it's your employer, the company, just take this money and so I don't even see it. The third approach is a passive approach. And I'm not sure if many of you all are familiar with rounding up. It's becoming a lot more popular. But it's an approach to say, well, as you're spending, and this isn't my favorite, but nonetheless, it's an approach. And I think it's a great way to do some additional after-tax savings, not your before-tax savings. But it's a great approach to say, I use my debit card, something charge $5.55. I'll set it up so that actually $6 moves out of my account. $5.55 will go towards the merchant for whatever I purchase, and the 45 cents, I'll let that go to savings. And we're seeing this more because I'm sure as many people, you go to the grocery store and they'll say, oh, we are doing a fundraiser for XYZ. Would you like to round up your purchase? So they are already starting to educate you and make you more aware of the concept of saving or rounding up as an option to putting some more money away, and making it where it does not feel particularly painful. It's like, okay, that additional 45 cents, probably don't miss it. I set my kid up with this account. Actually, it's like one company who does this really well is called Acorns, and you can set up your debit card or various cards with it, and every time you use that account, then they will round it up. If you can set it up with rules to say that even if there is anything over $5 automatically gets rounded up. But you'll look up in using this methodology, and you're like, oh my gosh, I've got $100 saved, and I barely felt it. And the thing with them, I like it because they do invest it for you, so you're actually getting some interest. The third part of being able to execute on your plan, your savings plan, is to set up an account. And there are a lot of different ways, and I'm going to call them these jars, right? Just like the lady, she had to go and get some jars so she could receive, get more of the oil, and the oil could pour. Well, if you don't set up the accounts and fund it, then how is the oil going to pour? So a few different accounts that are available. The first one is a savings account. And savings accounts generally are kind of the first type of accounts many of us learn about. Pretty low risk, but not a lot of interest. And interest rates are low right now. So, I mean, maybe for saving, putting your money in a savings account, easy to get to, but you're probably only getting about like less than 1% on that savings. Now, there are investment accounts, which are also known as brokerage accounts. This is where you can choose different investments, whether it's in the stock market, whether it's into bonds, or some people are starting to play with cryptocurrencies and things of that nature. But you're setting up this account with a thought towards what kind of investments that you want to put into it. And we're getting to this because I want everyone to start thinking about you're investing and you're saving for a purpose. And that's where we're getting into those SMART goals. Another type of account are retirement accounts. Retirement accounts, there's pre-tax and there's post-tax. So like your retirement accounts, like some people might have retirement offerings through their employers. So that might be a 401k, a 403b, SEP plan. But generally how it will work is you put money pre-tax into this account so that when you retire, you will have to pay some tax on it, but most people use these accounts because they also want the match from their employers. And I will tell you, make sure you save so that you can get that match, because again, that is money that you didn't have to work for. That's a part of tapping into the abundance. So you don't want to miss out on your opportunities here. Also, when you're using these pre-tax accounts, they're actually decreasing the amount of money that is taxable. So that's why they tell you to make sure that if you have some of these options through your employers, to take advantage of them. There's also types of retirement accounts. Let's just say you work for an employer that doesn't offer retirement, and a lot of us do. So you have to figure out how to save on your own. So there's an account called a Roth account, ROTH, Roth. And the beautiful thing about a Roth account is that if you save into it with after-tax money, when you go to pull it out, it is not taxable. I'll say that again. When you go to pull it out, it is not taxable because you've already paid taxes on the money that you've used to put into it. So Again, not only are you saving, but you see that you're positioning yourself to be able to reap a reward that you didn't have to work for. That's the harvest. That's the multiples that I want you all to understand that's available to you when you intentionally pull some money aside to save. The third part or the fourth part is to work. So you're going to have to pour into your plan with quiet and steady faith and patience. It might look like, I don't know if it's growing, this is hard. Many people start off something super excited. They're like, oh, okay, I'm about to do this, right? Like, I'm about to open my account. I'm gonna get my Roth. I'm gonna get my savings account and I'm gonna put, $50 in it a month. And then like after 2 months, like if they don't see it growing fast enough, they stop. But I would implore you, do not stop, because then you will miss out on, again, another principle. And this principle is called dollar cost averaging. So what is dollar cost averaging? Dollar cost averaging is a strategy where if you invest your money in equal portions at regular intervals, regardless of the ups and the downs in the market, you will see growth. Have people become rich? Dollar cost averaging? Yes. Why? Because again, it makes you to build consistency and focus. It operates outside of your emotions. When you operate with consistency and you're putting your money in, you're putting it in regular intervals, that same amount, whether you strapped, whether you feel good, whether you stressed, whether you're anxious, whether you frustrated, whether you in transition, the principle will work for you. So it's important to work your plan. Because if you're not working your plan, then your plan can't work for you. I mean, that's as simple as it goes. Principles work outside of emotions. And so many times we get caught up in our emotions, and then our emotions cause us to step outside of truths. But if we're talking about our finances, then we have to recognize that if we save, the truth is that we'll reap. I go back to thinking about the farmer. And has anyone ever heard of a farmer who went and got their seed, planted it into the ground, but then became impatient and dug the seed up? Like they were like, you know what? I can't do this anymore. I can't wait. I'm gonna just dig it back up. I don't think that farmer will be very successful. And the same goes here. We can't dig up our seed. When you sow it, put it in, wait, and then take care of it. Don't go and start plucking it up before it has an opportunity to actually grow. because it will grow. And what will happen is that you will reap. And as we're often told, is we need to be fruitful and multiply. And I know many of us, we don't think of ourselves as investors, but let me kind of tell you about from being in banking. There's people who they take investing very seriously. And when they sow that money and they invest that money into an investment vehicle, they do a lot of research and there's a lot of intention around what kind of rate of return they expect to see for their money. And one of the ways that they measure that is what's called a return on investment. If they take even $1,000, let's just say $1,000, they'll say, all right, how do I feel around risk? Because if there's no risk, then there's no reward. So I'm putting this money out here because I'm expecting it to work for me and to bring back more money. Now, I know many of us, we don't think of ourselves as investors. We just send out money, we earn and we spend. We're just so used to just money just go, go, go. We just see money going out everywhere. And the only way we see money coming in is if we have to turn around and work for it. But the truth is, money is a tool. It's supposed to work for you. You have to release it so that it can go out there and go bring some more dollars back to you. And that's why it's important that you're intentional about saving, because when you're saving, it's not just so that I know I'm putting, my goal is to save $1,000 and then I just expect $1,000 back. That's not how it works. I want you all to think like investors. And so if you are saving that $1,000, then you should have an expectancy for a return based on whatever level of risk you are willing to accept. So now, if you're not willing to accept any risk, then you'll put it in that savings account. And you'll get a little something. It'll be like, 0.5% or 1%. It'll be safe. Maybe you'll, for your $1,000, you'll come away with like 50 cents. But if you're willing to take some more risk, however you feel comfortable to research it, then you can indeed expect to see a return. And there's a rule here that's called the rule of 72. And it gives you some guidance in terms of when I talk to you about the multiples. The rule of 72 tells you how long it will take for your investment to double based on the rate of return per period. So let's just say, for instance, you're getting an interest rate of 10%. So then the rule of 72 is that you will get, you'll see your money double in, say, that's 7 years. And so you can use this rule to say, you know what, man, if I stay consistent, I use dollar cost average, I work my plan, I set my goals, I manage my budget, I stay steady. Here's where my expectation, here's just a little formula I can use to say when I'm going to see my double. And this is just double, you all. Honestly, for investing, you should see multiples. That's the harvest. That's the that's that's the real blessing is when you see is when you see 3 times, 4 times, 5 times, 10 times the return on what you sow. That's the beauty of it. Because as we remember, at the end of the story, after they poured all the oil into all the different jars, and they were like, oh my gosh, the oil kept going, and there was all of these jars of this oil. Then the prophet told the widow woman, the mother, now go sell your oil, pay your debts, and live off the rest. And so that's where we have to be intentional with our overflow. That's why you need to invest and save. It's many times we're like, oh, I'm just trying to get it with what I can earn myself. But the truth is, when you are carving out that saving and you're doing your investing, then it's going to work for you, so that then you can take some of that return on investment to help you to pay off your debts and live on the rest. Now, the important part is, and I put this here because I've seen this. People get super excited. I mean, why do we think like lottery winners? They make all this money and then they still look up and then they're broke. It never seems to amaze me. Well, because they have an earn spend still a mentality. They never take any of that money and make sure that it's set aside and saved and invested. They go, they get the money, and then they spend. They spend. They spend on everything that anybody asked them for, right? They're, they bought mama a house, daddy a house, sister a house, friend down the street a house, bought 5 different cars, the gym shoes, the gold chain, the fancy jewelry. But what we're discussing here is a strategy to win, 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 and to live life truly in abundance. And how you do that is you carve out that save, you sow and you reap. It's like wash, rinse, and repeat. So then you can live on the rest and you can be fruitful and multiply. So with that, I would just love to open it up for questions from anyone who has any questions regarding what we've discussed.
All right, Hope, I want to thank you for an excellent presentation. Those who have questions, you can type them into the comment box, and we'll go over those questions. I want to make sure that everyone has an opportunity to know how to reach Hope Lavelle. You can transform your life. You don't have to continue to live from paycheck to paycheck. And especially as a parent, there's so many unexpected expenses that come up. Yeah. And it's important to have the money to address those expenses. The example of the woman with the oil and how she was told to pay off her debts and live off the rest. That's something that we all can benefit from. Many times we talk about, I saw this outfit that I want to buy and it's so sharp, and I know I've got the money, so I'm gonna go get it right now. And we don't think about what we already owe. Um, and so we continue to spend, and then we look up and we're paying interest on what we've purchased. We're paying interest on the food we ate at the restaurant because we used a credit card. And so we're continuing to pay for that meal. But uh, Hope, I think you've done beyond an excellent job in helping us to rethink our relationship with money. And as I said, it's important as a parent, but it's also important as an individual. Um, as we're closing out, Hope, would you like to say a little bit about your group, the Transformational Advisory Group? And then we're going to go to our next presentation, Learning How to Save a Life, and that will be with Lauren Walker. So Hope, if you would tell us a little bit about the Transformational Advisory Group and how people can reach you if they'd like more information.
Absolutely. So yes, I am the transformational advisor. We call it TAG, Transformational Advisory Group. And so it is a business that I operate with my husband. We are both uh, social and we would say serial entrepreneurs. We have a passion for helping people thrive and grow in their earnest desire to bring their business to a place where it's not just serving them, but it is going to serve their community. And so we work with business owners to help them look at their strategy, think about think about kind of how they are delivering services and how to bring them to the market, and to put together a business model and a business plan that will help them officially do that. While if they need to, say, raise capital, get loans, save for it themselves, because we're firm believers that the first person who needs to sow into the business is the founders. So we are happy. We work with various business owners on their strategy, as well as with certifications, and figuring out also how to get contracts to say if they want to work with the government or with other corporate agencies.
Well, that's wonderful. Um, the information on the screen includes an email address that you can use to reach out to the Transformational Advisory Group and to Hope Lavelle and her husband. The email address is hope@tagforsuccess.com. hope@tagforsuccess.com. Once again, Hope, I want to thank you for the presentation today. And I believe that this presentation will continue to be a blessing to many. So at this time, we're going to move into the second session for today, which is Save a Life. And our presenter will be Lauren Walker.
Hi, thank you very much, Bishop Reed. Again, I'm Lauren Walker. I hail from Detroit, Michigan, currently reside in Dearborn, and I am a CPR fanatic. My contact information I'm going to share with your viewers. There's my contact information. My phone is 313-777-0367. But the best way to reach me is via email, learn to save a life 365 gmail.com. And a little bit about myself. I am a graduate of Eastern Michigan University with a teaching degree, but I currently I work for a company called Penske in automotive logistics. However, teaching is something that I've been gifted with, and my passion has always been with helping people, and always have, and I've always been very fascinated with CPR and first aid. I realized the older I got that stemmed from my father, because I actually saw him in action performing CPR, and I was completely blown away. Completely blown away. He helped a neighbor of ours. She was an elderly lady, and she told him that someone broke into her home. But she fell out on the ground, and my dad sprung into action, and he immediately started performing CPR on her. And now, mind you, I was a child, and seeing this lady fall out on the ground, and then seeing him giving compressions and giving the rescue breaths and everything like that, and then seeing the EMS team when they arrived, and then actually seeing movement from this lady who I had seen on the ground moving around, I was just blown away. And I remember asking my dad, how did you know how to do that? And he just simply said he remembers learning it in school. So in that moment, I realized that, one, my dad was a superhero. And then two, I realized how important CPR was. And it's one of those skills that once you learn it, it sticks with you, kind of like riding a bike, right? Granted, some things change throughout the years, that the American Heart Associations decide to implement, but the actual process of compressions and rescue breaths remains the same. So what is CPR? CPR, it stands for cardiopulmonary resuscitation. And what it is, it's the action of pumping blood from the heart to the vital organs. A couple of facts. Cardiac arrest, sudden cardiac arrest rather, is actually the leading cause of death right here in the United States. And what that is, that's when the heart actually has stopped beating. And about 70% of people actually die from heart-related deaths before they even make it to the hospital. So timing is key, and the actual action of giving compressions in CPR is absolutely critical in saving a person's life. And that goes from a child to an infant to an adult. It's across the board. And brain damage actually begins just after 4 to 6 minutes without the brain receiving any type of oxygen. And then brain death actually happens after just 10 minutes with no oxygen flowing to the brain. So what the action of CPR is doing, because the heart is not beating on its own at this point, is giving external compressions to the heart, which is mimicking a heartbeat. So when you press down hard and fast in the middle of the chest, you are releasing the blood out of the heart, and it's flowing, it's allowing it to flow to the lungs and up to the brain to keep those vital organs alive. And I actually have a clip of compressions done on an infant that I'm going to share. Okay. Now, can you guys see the screen here? Oh, wait.
Not yet.
Yeah, okay, hold on.
No.
Okay, Can you see my screen now?
Yes.
Okay, great. So here is a quick clip that shows the placement of the hands on an infant. Now, what I'm showing here, what I'm about to show is where you place your fingers. So on an infant, it's between the nipples, just below the nipple line. You can do it with using 2 fingers or 2 knuckles, depending on the length of your fingernails. Or you can use 2 thumbs, which you'll see in about 2 seconds. I think I show that as well. Yeah, you place your fingers on the side of the baby and you take your thumbs just below the nipple line and you do your compressions. And on an infant, you want to give 30 compressions. And actually that goes across the board, but you give 30 compressions and you want to go down to a depth at least about 1.5 inches on an infant. And you give 2 rescue breaths after you have given your 30 compressions. On an infant, it's important to enclose your mouth around their nose and their mouth when you give your rescue breaths. You don't want to breathe too hard, just enough air to see their chest rise. And a cycle of CPR is 5 times doing 30 compressions and giving 2 rescue breaths. And that would be equivalent to 2 minutes. And the American Heart Association has actually implemented that before you call 911, if you are at home by yourself or in a classroom by yourself and your phone is not close by and no one is around to actually call 911 for you, they've implemented, because their bodies are still young and developing, you actually do a cycle of CPR, which is equivalent to 2 minutes of 30 compressions and 2 breaths to get their oxygenated blood flowing in their tiny bodies. On a child, the same rule applies. If you are by yourself, before you call 911, if your phone is in another room or there's no other bystander close by, you work on that child for 2 minutes before you have to leave them to grab your phone and to go call 911. And with them, it's the same as well. 30 compressions and 2 rescue breaths. On a child, I'm going to show you a quick clip of where the hand placement is on them. Share. Guys gotta excuse me, I'm not the best with technology sometimes. Here it is. All right. Okay, now can you see the clip of child CPR? Is that on the screen?
Yes.
Perfect. All right, so here's this clip. Now on a child, you use 2 hands, or you can use 1 hand, depending on your size. In between the nipples, in the middle of the chest, on their sternum, you take the heel of your hand and you place it in the middle of their chest and you press down hard and fast. 30 compressions in the middle of their chest. If you're a large person, let's say you're like the size of Shaquille O'Neal, you're not going to use 2 hands because you would completely crush their rib cage and all the other bones surrounding the heart. You can just use 1 hand. And with that 1 hand, you would, in the same location, with the heel of your hand in the middle of the chest, you press down hard and fast. Now, when I say fast, the rate of compressions in doing CPR across the board, infant, child, and adult, is 100 to 120 compressions per minute. That sounds like it's a lot, but it actually isn't, because once your adrenaline is pumping and once you are in the mode of, bringing this person back to life, you'll be surprised how quickly 100 compressions can go by. And the key thing to keeping count is counting out loud. Once you start to count out loud, you're kind of building up a rhythm, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, etc. And CPR is exhausting. It is. You will lose breath, but it's always important to maintain your rhythm. Continue to count out loud. Don't lose your count. And it's important to minimize any interruptions. The only interruptions that are allowed in doing CPR is taking the time to stop compressions to do your rescue breaths, giving 2 rescue breaths. That should take no more than a couple of seconds. And like I said, on an infant, your mouth goes around their nose and the mouth. On a child, you want to pinch their nose and then administer the 2 rescue breaths. And that's also the same for an adult. Let's see. If a child is choking, let's start here. The universal sign for choking is clenching your neck, either with 2 hands or with 1 hand. That's across the board, all over the world. When you choke, that's how you're going to look. You have a panic look. And babies, though, of course, they're not going to be able to do that, but they will have that panic look on their face. So, and you'll start to see discoloration around their mouth if they are not receiving any type of oxygen. So with the infant, well, let me start this. Let me rewind a little bit. If a person is coughing, that's a good sign, because that means that they have not gone into a severe life-threatening choking situation. So if you find a grown-up, a child, or a baby coughing, that's good. Encourage them to continue to cough, because the body is naturally trying to force that whatever object is up and out, so they can stop choking. But when a person is no longer able to cough or able to speak, then you have a problem on your hands. It's turned into a life-threatening choking situation. So in that case, we'll start with the infant. With an infant, and I'll show a quick clip of that as well, but with an infant, you want to you flip them on their forearm and you give 5 back blows in the middle of their back between the shoulder blades. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Of course, you don't count that fast. But then, and then you cradle their head and you flip them over to your opposite arm, and then you give 5 chest thrusts in the same location where you would give chest compressions. And you give 5 chest thrusts. And if the object has not come up, or if you don't see anything in the mouth, you flip them back over and you do the 5 back blows again, flip them back and give 5 chest thrusts. Now, once you see an item in their mouth, you do a finger sweep to get that object out. Let me show you this clip. Oh, actually, before I get to the clip, on a child, a big kid, or a grown-up choking, you would do a procedure that's called the Heimlich maneuver. And with the Heimlich, you feel for their navel, you reach around, and with the fist of your hand and the other hand over the fist, like that, you press in and upward very fast and hard. If at any point a person becomes unresponsive, you want to get them down to the ground, because then you will have to go into CPR mode. And that's across the board with a grown up, a child, or an infant. But with God's grace, you will hope that their choking will never have to turn into you having to go into CPR mode. But here's a clip. Now, this clip, this is on a grown up, is showing the placement of the hands and doing that upward J-shaped motion, and you press hard to force that object out. And then if you're by yourself, it's going to roll over to this next part. But if you're by yourself and you find yourself choking, you can do that same action of the Heimlich maneuver on yourself as well. You can either do it with your hands or with the assistance of the back of a chair or the side of a bookcase or table, something hard that you are literally going to lunge your stomach into in the same area where you would do the hand placement just above your navel. Here it is here. Here's a clip. If you are by yourself, yep, you ram your stomach into the back of the chair to get that object out. Now, here is a clip on helping a choking infant. It's important that you cradle around their jawline when you place them on your forearm. It's important that when they are on your forearm, you keep them at a diagonal with the head going down. Reason being is because gravity naturally will, whatever they are choking on is going to start to come up and out. That's the goal. So when they're in that position, like I said, you give the 5 back blows, and then you flip them over. When you're flipping them over, it's important to still support their head and neck. And you continue to keep them in that downward diagonal position so that gravity can continue to force that object up towards the head. And then you do your 5 chest thrusts. And each time after your chest thrust, make sure that you look into that mouth so that you can see that object. And then if you do see it, of course, you do the finger sweep to get it out. I want to talk next about this video here. This is my favorite video. Like I said, I'm a CPR fanatic. And I remember coming across this video and I fell in love with it. So I make sure that I share this video with every person so that you can see the action of CPR, what it is doing in the body. Because if you do not give quality compressions, you're creating more harm for that person. That person's chance of survival absolutely decreases tremendously. When you give compressions, like I was saying before, it's pushing the blood out of the heart and circulating it through to those vital organs. If you're not pressing fast enough and deep enough, everything stops. The goal is to keep the organs alive and to build up the pressure, the blood pressure in the body to flow that oxygenated blood to keep a person alive. So here's a quick clip. And this gentleman here, he's going at the proper depth, which is building up that pressure and flowing the blood. And then you see, if you're not pressing deep enough.
We cannot see the clips.
Oh, no.
Yes, the other 2 clips did not show. And now we don't see this one.
You know what? It would help if I hit share. Lord have mercy. Okay. Let me rewind this back. Did you guys see so you did not see the choking video?
No.
Okay. Let me bring that back up. I apologize. Wait. Stop. I told you, Bishop, technology and myself, we don't always get along the best. So let's see. Uh, okay. Share screen. Okay, now here is the choking clip where I'm doing the Heimlich maneuver on a grown-up. The placement of the hand, like I said, is above the navel, and you press in and upward, kind of like a small J shape. And that repeated motion forces the object up with the air that you are pressing in from the stomach up and out of their mouth. This is about to flow into the next clip, where if you find yourself by yourself choking and no one is around to help to do the Heimlich maneuver on you, you can do it on yourself with the same hand motion, or you can do it with the assistance of the back of a chair, side of a table, bookcase, or whatnot. So as you see here, she's choking and she quickly jumped up and forced her stomach into the back of that chair. Before I show you the choking one on the infant, quick thing. Let's say a woman is pregnant, or a person has a large belly and you can't quite reach your arms around their stomach. Or of course, if they're pregnant, you don't want to press in on their stomach. You can do the Heimlich on their chest area. You do it in the same placement where you do chest compressions on the sternum, and you press in and upward in the middle of their chest. Now here is the one on a baby. Like I was saying, you cradle around their jawline and you place them on your forearm. It's always important to have their head facing down to the ground, like in a diagonal. And that's to help with gravity to force that object towards their head. And then you'll see I'm about to give the 5 back blows. And you can't be afraid to hit that baby on the back. Don't be afraid, because your goal is to, one, to make sure this does not turn into a situation where you have to do CPR, where the goal is to get this object out and to keep this baby alive. So you have to be forceful with your back blows. And then after each set of doing the 5 back blows and then giving the 5 chest thrusts, you want to look in their mouth. If you see an object, then you do a finger sweep. So that was that clip. Stop share. So I'm back. Hello. Oh, the video, my favorite video of all times, that shows the importance of those chest compressions. This video here, it just shows how important it is when you go fast and go hard, what it's doing inside of the body. The goal is to keep that brain alive. Uh, Again, I kind of relate everything to my dad. I lost my dad in 2015 from sudden cardiac arrest. So it's kind of full circle with him, actually. Because as a child, I saw him doing this, and I became fascinated with CPR. And then as a grown up, without giving the proper compressions and breath and whatnot, unfortunately, he did not receive the proper amount of oxygen. And like I said, just after 10 minutes with no oxygen, a person becomes brain dead. So I experienced that as kind of full circle. So CPR is something that is so, so important. I love teaching CPR. I love making sure that people are certified. In my class, you receive a 2-year certification. I'm a registered and certified instructor through EMS Safety Services. So the cards are through them, and it's a 2-year certification that a person holds. And it's very critical and important to know what to do in emergency situations. And like I said, once you learn it, it's a skill that's embedded in your brain and in your heart. You won't forget it, And yeah, it's important. Compressions are the most important part of CPR. Even if a person is not certified, if you don't quite know what to do, the American Heart Association implemented hands-only compressions, and you do compressions nonstop until emergency help arrives. Because again, like I said, those compressions is what is keeping the blood and the oxygen flowing to your vital organs, your heart, your lungs, and your brain. Now back to choking. Poison. Poison is something that happens all the time, unfortunately, in households. It predominantly happens in households with children under the age of 6. They're curious, right? They get a hold of stuff that they should not. It's important to keep things locked up, keep things far away and out of their reach. Keep the tops on bottles closed shut, and all of your laundry Tide Pods and all that type of stuff, put them away. Sometimes we can get careless and in haste and rushing, you kind of forget to put things up or, leave something out. But it's important to remember that these little people can die, I have a slide that I can actually show about poison. So this screen right here is talking about poison. It's important to recognize what the item was that they might have ingested, either by eating or drinking or inhaling. You want to look for signs of like any type of empty bottles around. You want to smell for strong odors on their breath or in the air, in the area. You want to check to see if that child becomes nauseous or dizzy, if they're starting to act out of their norm, you look for burns and blisters around the mouth. You listen if they begin to make like, if their breathing becomes labored or, or start to breathe shallow. You look for signs of seizures, and you call 911. You call the Poison Control Center. Poison Control Center is actually a 24-hour 24/7 operation. Their hotline, their phone number is 1-800-222-1222. And that's a number to memorize. That's the number to know right along with 911. Those are two numbers that you should never forget. And you call them and they would give you instructions on what to do. If they, they want you to flush that child out with water or get them into fresh air, whatever their direction is, they will give that to you. And you want to continue to monitor the child. And that's it about poison. 1-800-222-1222 is the 24/7 phone number for the Poison Control Center. And I am available anytime to talk about my passion, CPR and first aid. I feel like it's very critical to learn. And in classes, I show breathing barriers because, in our COVID world, some people, you might not feel comfortable in giving rescue breaths to a person or a child that you don't know, right? So you can use, they have so many different products out there that you can use in giving rescue breaths. There's like a face shield that you can place over their mouth, and it has a filtered valve that goes in. You can't receive their air, they only receive your air. There's one that kind of looks like an oxygen mask, but it's not quite an oxygen mask. It goes over their nose and mouth. And with those things, it's important to make sure that the seal is tight so that no air loss is being lost. You make sure that the seal is tight when you give your rescue breaths. In a class, we also discussed, sometimes some people have what's called a stoma. If you've ever met a person that has a device in their throat, let's say from throat cancer, that's an unfortunate situation where they have to have one placed in. You learn about breathing into a stoma. You make sure that you close their nose and mouth to make sure that no air is lost, and you breathe into that to give them air. If it's a situation where a person's jaw or mouth is damaged from whatever situation got them to their cardiac state, you can actually breathe into their nose, and that goes for a child as well. There's so many things to learn, so many things to talk about. And Bishop Reed, I'm going to pass it over to you if you have any questions.
All right. I think this is an excellent presentation. It's something that more of us need to learn about. When you talk about saving a life, there are many babysitters and parents and grandparents who wish they knew what to do. And many times these things happen so quickly, we're not expecting it.
Yeah.
Before you know it, you have a situation. I saw a young man on TV, I believe it was the Today Show, but it was one of the TV programs. He was around 9 or 10 years old. And the way the story went, he had recently lost his dad, but his dad was his role model. And he was at school. He had learned CPR, and he had also learned about choking hazards and how to perform the proper procedure if someone's choking. And he was at school, a classmate during lunch started choking. And he ran over to the classmate and he did the hemlock procedure, and he was able to rescue his classmate.
Yeah.
Now, this
awesome.
is a child, He's in elementary school, but he learned how to do this and he was able to save his classmate's life. And then the same day, his mom was driving him home from school and he saw a house on fire. He saw a woman stumble out of the house, an older woman. She was really struggling and apparently she had inhaled too much smoke, but she was really struggling to breathe and she collapsed on the ground. He told his mom to stop the car and he ran over and he began to perform CPR on this woman and
Amazing.
saved her life. So in one day, he saved 2 lives.
That's amazing.
Yeah, yeah. And he said he kept hearing his dad say, you have to make a difference. You have to make a difference. And so he was determined to make a difference. This is something that we all need to understand.
Mhm.
So I want to thank you for your presentation today,
Thank you.
taking time out to be with us. And the name of your company is Save a Life.
It's learn to save a life.
Oh, learn to save a life.
Learn to save a life because it's so important to learn how to save a life.
That's
Yeah,
right.
so it's
That's
learn
right.
to save a life.
Learn to save a life. And you know, you think about the cost for babysitters has gone up. People are having to rely on someone else to help with their children. And when you leave home, you assume the person is qualified
Right.
to do whatever needs to be done. But those that are babysitters need to learn how to save a life. So I got
Right.
the name of your business right this time. But they have to learn how to do that because the times that we live in, things happen so suddenly.
Yeah.
And so everyone needs this technique, especially when it comes to young children,
Right.
because they're the ones that they're on overdrive.
Right.
They're moving
Right.
fast. They're doing a lot of things.
Right.
So once again, I want to thank you for joining us for our Vision of Hope parenting series. Those who would like to follow up with Lauren, Lauren, would you share how they can reach you?
Yes, of course. My email address is learn to save a life 365@gmail.com. Again, that's learn two spelled out TO, save a life 365@gmail.com. Because 365 days out the year, you should learn how to save a life. It's life saving. You know, it's critical. It's absolutely imperative to know what to do in an emergency situation.
And for those that are interested in taking a CPR class where you will get your certification that, as Lauren said, is good for 2 years, you can contact International Humanitarian Services, and the email address is intlhumanitarian@comcast.net. Or you can also send us a message through this Facebook page, and we will make sure to follow up with you. We are looking to have a class available in the month of May, late May, early June. And so we will post more information about the class. We're going to invite Lauren to come up to Lansing, Michigan and teach this class because everyone needs to learn to save a life.
You got it, Bishop.
All right. All right.
Thank you so much for having me. I
Thank
learned a lot today about budgeting, and I look forward to the upcoming sessions and learn more. And look forward to sharing more information with more people.
All right. Well, we're looking forward to the same. On next Saturday, we will be talking about mental health. I always talk about this commercial, and I guess it kind of dates me, but it's a Calgon commercial.
Mm.
And I don't get any money from Calgon, uh, but I love the commercial because it's a woman who is in the bathtub. She's trying to relax, and children are running through the house and they're on overdrive. They're bamming on the door and saying, "Mommy, mommy." And she says, "Calgon, take me away," which is really something that many parents experience when you have small children and they want your attention 24 hours a day. As long as they're awake, they expect you to be awake. And sometimes you just need a mental health break where your children can be safe and at the same time you can do what you need to do. So next week, we'll be talking about mental health and as it relates to parenting. We'll begin at 12:30 and our speaker will be Kimberly Brown from Zoe Consulting. Kimberly Brown from Zoe Consulting. And she has been in the mental health field for many years. And so we're excited about having her join us. So until next time, make sure that you save a life and save some money while you're at it.
Hey, that's great.
All right, all right. So we are going to sign off at this time.